I mean plaster factory, towards the stadium. Actually, I'd already captured the stadium. Now this was moving southwest. We were together with Dr. Pio Lawyer in the exchange of fire. And of course, the civilian as he was lying flat on the ground. Lokech with his height
was standing.
And the wall we were using as cover certainly was halfway his height.
Was halfway the commander.
Was halfway his height. And the man was saying, wewe pweka pale moto, you know. He directed the capture of that factory, not minding that he's actually the contingent commander, not the battalion commander.
Wow.
So the commitment he gave to his work was simply exceptional.
True commander.
And the 8 months he has spent in the police, I think, can testify to what I'm saying. So, fare thee well, generals. You served your country with dedication. But finally on these two, if you allow me, Charles, and colleagues on the panel, death is natural. Yes, General Ketch has gone to early because was only 63, 64. But how have you gone?
Yeah.
Some people grow, are born, they grow and simply die.
Nothing to remember.
They say, there was a person there called Felix. What trail have you left? 2, the death of these gentlemen should remind us that when you put service above self, your legacy lives beyond you.
Yeah.
You actually build a trail for your family.
Okay.
More than the material grabbing that we engage in. It is Solomon who says in Ecclesiastics, that's like chasing wind.
Yeah.
That you actually live with them to a person who doesn't even understand what they mean.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Chairman Mao, you have been a political leader at different levels, at the national level, and you have engaged with these persons. But I know that Lokech, of course, being a homeboy, born and bred in Acholi and working in Acholi and making his sprint from there, most likely, of course, you got involved in all these LRA things. You definitely engaged with him. But start with PECOS that you must have engaged with at a national level politics. What do you remember of this gentleman?
First, let me convey my sincere condolences to the families, to the UPDF, and to all Ugandans. We have had a summary of the field notes of Brigadier General Kulaije. My father was in the army, and he was one of those who was deployed in Congo in the late 60s, and he had a lot to tell me about that adventure. Now, there's a caveat: soldiers don't say everything. They're like hunters. So, if you're a civilian, don't go there and try standing behind a short wall. It's not advisable.
They might have hidden something about that short wall.
The so-called bravado, or even courage bordering on recklessness, is because good soldiers have got extremely good instincts. They no longer act consciously. There's something unconscious. I believe that human beings are connected to a bigger force. And if you are really an exceptional soldier, you are connected to that force. And you have to you get to know which direction to run, what to do at a particular time. Because in the heat of battle, there is no time to go through analysis. Therefore, I want to thank Brigadier General Kuraije for sharing those brief anecdotes. It gives an idea of what soldiering is all about. I knew both men at a personal level. With the General Pecos Kutesa, he always had a book. The last time I had a long discussion with him, he had a book by an author called John Theodore Kaczynski. The title was The Anti-Tech Revolution. Mm-hmm. The book is about how technology is taking over human life. To the extent that we have disengaged what God gave us, we are now relying more and more on technology. These days, even when people are doing simple mathematics, they'll open their calculator. We grew up when early morning the first test was what they call mental mathematics. Mental work. Yes, mental work. No paper, no pen. He loved ideas. Therefore, I would say he was highly intellectual, very, very brainy. I think the smoking notwithstanding, after that major surgery, I think he really started living a life of gratitude. Mm-hmm. It is important in life to always be grateful. And you only become grateful after a brush with death. Some of us have had brushes with death, not on the battlefield. So I think he had that constant smile, but that smile was even enhanced after that major surgery. He was always fun-loving. He had something witty to say, and I would really want somebody to come and testify that one time he had a quarrel, or that General Pecos Kutesa was annoyed. I've also read his book.
The way I saw it, how I saw the revolution.
And that is a memoir from his point of view. Many people who read books, they think that you must write the way Gibbons wrote about the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. 8 volumes. You must write everything. Even Gibbons did not write everything. He also wrote it from his point of view.
Yeah.
I'm glad he wrote something about what motivated him. In life, the most important thing is to understand what drives people. And to that extent, he was not afraid of being criticized. We used to argue during the time of walk to work, and also around the Tojikwatako campaign. One time we met and we had an exchange. I told him, I understand you are dismantling our campaign. And he said, no, it's my duty to give young people a sense of perspective. He was a master of the understatement. He never made extreme statements. And like General Okech was so unassuming, it was unsettling. General Okech, today I learned, when I went for the prayer, I arrived when the sermon was being delivered, and afterwards I went to greet the widow and the members of the family, and then I met General Tema, and I told General Tema that you survived the helicopter crash, And General Lokech survived so many dangerous incidents. Then he said, General Lokech was in the helicopter when we crashed.
Oh.
Yeah, they actually crashed. And I remember calling General Tema because he was the higher ranking officer, and I didn't know actually that General Lokech was in the helicopter. So I congratulated him, and you may have disagreements with some officers, but the military is about duty. And I think all human beings should know what their duty is and do it. General Lokech was a very dutiful man. Last week, I went to the office of the IGP on a totally different matter, and the ADC of the IGP said, do you want to greet your brother, General Lokech? I said, yes, of course. After I finish my business here, I'm happy to greet him. So he called, but he was not in office. And so I missed the chance to have a chat with him. What I know for sure is that the title of the Lion of Mogadishu was because he took his assignment very seriously. It is important when soldiers know that they should not desecrate the Ugandan flag. And I always challenge the UPDF. And I say, if you were having the same mindset you have when you are in Mogadishu, you will not be beating journalists here. Because really in Mogadishu, we are so proud of you. You are our best ambassadors for, number one, discipline, which really we must demand in our own country. Number two, courage. You know, I spent quite some time with the Joseph Kony and the LRA in the bush. So I had a conversation with them. I asked them, because they told me the UN soldiers were about 11 kilometers away from their camp. So I asked them, are you not afraid? They said, we sleep very soundly. We don't fear the UN. The UN? For us, we think they are like scouts. Please, UN, if you are listening, don't kill me. I'm just relaying the opinion of the Lord's Resistance Army. So then I said, what about UPDF? He said, well, we respect the UPDF. So whenever we detect their presence, we take precautions. Either we move away or we take defensive positions. And I asked them, how do you determine that they are around? He said, you know, here we don't smoke in the LRA. The UPDF, they smoke. And we as non-smokers, we can sniff tobacco from miles away. The wind brings it to us. Wow. When we smell cigarettes, we know we have threats in the neighborhood.
Bush survival.
So, you know, don't say I don't say good things about UPDF anymore.
But you have said the good and then mixed it up with them smoking in the bush.
No, the smoking is a habit. But what I'm saying, my main point is respect.
Yes.
Now, that respect is because of the commitment.
Yeah.
I also met General Kavuma at the vigil. He was in Central African Republic. We went to visit him there. They were the ones guarding the governor of one of the biggest provinces. Actually, there was no government in that area. No. So I remember joking with them. I said, why don't we just come and colonize this place? we bring our land wrangles here instead of focusing in Uganda. Lastly, there are three things that we should remember as we pay tribute, particularly to Major General Paul Lokech. Good soldiers must know how to communicate clearly. And both of them shared that attribute. Number two, good soldiers are friendly. Some people think that when you're a soldier, you must always look very tough. Actually, the toughest soldiers are ever smiling. You know, when we were growing up, we were told that soldiers are injected with the urine of a lion. So I wondered how they collect the urine of a lion. Because it is quite a challenge. I don't know whether you put the lion to sleep, but to collect the urine of a lion. but
those stories are common in the villages. We were told that if you get a dog and you want it to be a real wild dog, okay, when it is tough to guard the home, that you have to feed it on wasps. And now when I grew up, I started wondering, how would you get the wasps?
Yeah, it is a danger to you who is collecting them also.
Exactly.
Thirdly, good military leaders. I was told that real military service, as in being a proper soldier, is up to like rank of colonel. From colonel upwards now is leadership.
Yeah.
The government of Uganda and the UPDF invested in training people like General Okech and General Pecos Kutesa. I met a lady who works in the American embassy today, and she told me her duty is to process the papers of those who are going for training. I think it is very, very, very important, and we should make some recommendations that our soldiers shouldn't be dragged in our politics, because it puts a discount on where they would excel. Soldiers are not trained to do police work. Leading the police is another matter. I have my reservations about mixing up the two. The police are supposed to handle civilians, and civilians are very provocative. Soldiers generally don't have a lot of patience with particularly the lower ranking one. I am not in the habit of arguing with lower ranking soldiers. Actually, when I find them, I move towards those who are higher ranking, because you can have exchanges and so on.
On ideology and...
Yeah. You know, one time, two of our leaders, Professor Latigo and Honorable Kumu Regan, went to have an argument with some soldiers in Pade. They came back with wounds on their heads. So, because of difference in training, the police, as intolerant as they are, sometimes are fairly more patient than the soldiers. And General Okech definitely knew that his duty was to serve the Ugandan state.
Yeah.
And whatever he did because that is what he believed was his duty.
Okay.
And I believe they will continue to be remembered as role models of courage, of lifelong learning and pursuit of knowledge, as shining examples of discipline and humility.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairman.
An addendum, I beg.
Yes.
As the Nigerians say. An addendum on the two gentlemen that I should have put. For General Pecos to have abandoned the trappings of a young man and they joined the cadet, joined actually the war against Idi Amin in late 78 and then cadet. He must have been extremely mad or extremely patriotic. Now he had the option of staying and serve the government. But again, to go on war against a sitting government, that's extreme conviction of a cause.
Yeah.
And when a soldier believes in a cause, he will give it his best.
Yeah.
Now, General Kech did something that the Russians should be writing home about. A main battle tank T-55 is made to be driven a short distance in the battlefield. Otherwise, you put it on a loader and take it to the next point. But General Kech walked 700 kilometers
In Congo.
in Congo to come bring his force to Bwera with the T-55 tanks.
I remember we went to welcome them
Yes.
at the border.
In Kasese.
It's Uganda
They would
that
get
has...
stuck in the mud.
Yes.
He orders and say, we are heading home. That is the order.
Wow.
They crossed rivers with these tanks, minus bridges, but 700 kilometers later, he delivered his force
Back home.
back home. You
Actually,
can only
the
compare...
president had to go there to welcome them.
Yes, the women followed from Badolite to here, which is 1,000... a distance of 1,600 kilometers.
Now isn't that true love?
Either true love, and then the EPDF being true ambassadors of the country.
That was the only known protection available.
Now, I can tell you, you can only compare him with Field Marshal Romero, who was able to return to Germany from North Africa, even when Hitler had denied him logistics.
Wow.
He returned his force, not himself alone.
By the way, did he have to first consult the president on that move as commander-in-chief? Or
Of course.
he just decided as a field commander, this is the best way? Because I'm told they didn't have any flights, and the remaining where they were then was more dangerous to the troops. So he just decided, let's walk the 700 plus kilometers.
And of course, in
3 months, right?
Yes, in the military, you never act unilaterally. You must follow the chain of command. And two, you discuss the options available for the operation to be executed. We had to leave Congo. 1. 2, there were no flights available indeed. So, what next?
Walk.
We did what we do best.
Wow.
We walked. And remember,
That story-
walking is not strange to any other AUPDF.
We were on the Committee of Defense and Internal Affairs.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had been attacking the president and the government, telling them that the helicopters can't, the tanks can't move. So he made sure people like me and the late Agri Awori
Attended the receiving ceremony.
Yeah, and we flew in one of the so-called junk helicopters.
You accepted?
Of course we were.
Were you forced?
No, when we reached there, he turned all the jokes on us. He said, so the helicopter brought you safely.
You were actually
Then
brave.
he said, the tanks have also moved. And then he said, but even if a tank is not moving, you can't approach it because it has fire. So you have to keep your distance from a tank. Anyway, it was important to demonstrate to members of parliament what the soldiers go through
Yeah.
to pursue policies that are made by politicians.
Yeah.
Because if we say there's a danger in Congo, so we say, General Kulaije, you are going there with 4,000 soldiers and don't come back until we call you back. So you must stay there. It is not an easy life to be a soldier, because sometimes inwardly you may actually not be agreeing with the decisions that have been taken. But unless you want to overthrow the constitution, you must abide. And these two gentlemen, I think they exemplified that sense of discipline and honor and duty.
I read some American soldier who made a comment. You know, for them they make comments even about about politics.
There was a British one today attacking the relationship between Britain and America. He was saying that we have now become servants of American foreign policy. And he was there in his full uniform.
There you are. Now, this guy was, I think, a captain.
Boris Johnson.
This guy was a captain, and I think they had been sent to one of the last, I don't know whether it was one of the last assignments of the troops to Afghanistan. And he said, we have to go. We have to put boots on the ground. And then they asked him, the journalists asked him what he thought about it and about leaving his family. He said, of course, as soldiers, we have signed to die. Whether or not the decisions taken by politicians are the correct ones, that's up to the politics. For me, I'm in uniform, and I have to go. Then he picked his bag. Then he said, I hope these politicians think about this. And his wife, I think, came and he kissed he pecked the wife, and he moved. And he was going on the tarmac, and the troop carrier was waiting. And I said, now, this is typical politics, and the soldier in uniform is making a comment.
That's
but
what
Sarah,
the German military philosopher Hans von Will said, that politics is war is politics by other means.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Sarah.
Well, I happened to meet General Pecos Kutesa briefly when he was writing his book as a youth leader after university, yes. Read bits of what he was writing, and well, he was patriotic. He never looked at people because of where they come from.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
And I was glad, yes, the
daughter,
brought that aspect out. Very intelligent, humorous, very brave. But, I interacted with him really for a very short time, so I don't know much, but the honorables who interacted with them in the army and in parliament and other circles I think have said it all. But he left a legacy, both of intellectual discourse within the army, but also for the future generations to read through his book. He was generally a happy man, committed to serving his country. If you look through the Hansard during the Constituent Assembly debates where he represented Kabula County, yeah, he left his mark. In the 10th Parliament, he did a lot, but I think more behind the scenes as compared to his role in the CA, where he was very active in the constituent making process. But also, it will be remembered that he moved a motion which was defeated, that people who made the constitution should then leave and let other people come and implement what they have made. But the motion was defeated. But I think it would have been a good thing.
It would have been historical.
Yes. For General Okech, I never met him. I have watched his videos in Somalia. I watched one where he was commanding from the front. At first I thought it was a movie. So that kind of braveness. But also in Somalia, at the time he was the contingent commander, we interfaced a lot. I think at the time more media were going into Somalia to check what we had a lot of media published on the war in Somalia. And among the remarkable things that have been said, he promoted civil-military relations, and he was able to become more successful because of the relations he built with the people for UPDF, which are still long-lasting. And that helped a lot in breaking the back of the Al-Shabaab, hence the name Lion of Mogadishu. I share Mao's sentiments on, the UPDF coming into police. General Okech was short-lived at police, and I don't know anything remarkable, really. We, as civil society, we did not. I think very few people interacted with him. I think there was no need, because normally we go when we are dealing with things of human rights, and I had not really had something to take me to interact with the police leadership at the time he was there. But when he passed on so young, a lot of the good things he did came to be known after his passing, especially for some of us who are muntu wa wansi.
I don't like that phrase.
Why don't you like it?
That is not correct.
Okay.
I would prefer muntu wa bulijjo.
You are right.
Muntu wa bulijjo.
Eh,
A common person,
yes.
not wa wansi. Wansi means
No,
downtrodden.
the other one is just a terminology.
I know.
Terminology. But I thought you were going to say you don't like it because the people who invoke it most
Yes.
are the people who are actually up there.
You can say that again. That I would call it obscurantism on my view.
The hoi polloi.
So
The whole
really,
following
yeah.
of this society.
So I was like, you know, given the work that General Okech did in Somalia and other areas really, but I think the top, the climax was Somalia for his career and the name Lion of Mogadishu. So I was like, this is a person who should be now taken through the city for public viewing, for people to pay respect. But when you bring such decorated generals at collision course with the people, then you even take away, you know, the successes they have achieved. And I think we need to follow the constitution when it comes to that fusion of the UPDF with the police. But briefly, all I could say is, you know, I send my condolences to the families of the fallen generals, and I wish the souls of the generals eternal repose.
Thank you, Sarah. Moses, your memories of these two fine gentlemen.
Thank you, Charles. Honorable Mao has, in his typical fashion, the allegories, the metaphors, the allusions. But I think, Charles, the people we are talking about have earned them, have more than earned them. August has been a sad month for the country, for the UPDF. Condolences to the families of these great sons of Uganda, the UPDF, their families. Charles, I first got a glimpse of Lieutenant General Pecos Kutesa in 1988. Wow. I had just sat for Senior 4 then. That time to Mbale Afande with the late Major Victor Bwana, who was we used to call them Special District Administrators, yes. SDAs. The late Major Victor Bwana was the SDA from Mbale, now RDC. And Afande, they came to talk to us about the role of the army in nation building. So for me, as a young person then, to begin with, I'd never seen a soldiers engaging in intellectual debates. Because previously, previously when we would see when we would see a man in uniform like you found, we would disappear, and you know, in Elgon, there are places where you can disappear. I know.
Up the mountain.
Yes. So in 1988, here come these guys, very enthusiastic, very cerebral, well-read, very thoughtful. I remember there was also was it Major General Okecho?
Yes.
There was also either Colonel
Okecha.
Okecha, yes.
Was from their place.
Yes,
my
so
mom's brother.
So we were
Padwot.
wowed,
He
Charles.
was a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
He
Yes.
was a lieutenant colonel.
We were wowed to see soldiers speaking perfect English. You can engage them, you can disagree with them. And then, you know, I found Kutesa, because he's also an author. Honorable Mao has talked about his book. It's a good book. I've read it myself.
Yeah.
These are gentlemen who have greatly contributed to the building of this country and making it what it is. So we really celebrate their lives, but also I think, Charles, we have a challenge to emulate their legacy, their commitment. I found, I think, when you go to the bush, for example, you are not sure you're going to win the war. Or you are sure, I found, that you are going to win the war.
You see,
but the courage, the commitment.
If I may answer the question.
Yes.
When you are convinced about the cause,
Yes.
it doesn't matter whether you will survive the war.
Yes.
You believe the cause will be achieved.
Yeah, so that commitment to the cause,
Yes.
the putting your lives on the line for the good of society at large. So I really, you know, these guys, we first of all pray that they rest well, but also, especially us in the public sector, Chelsea, I think there are so many life lessons that we can draw. Commitment, patriotism, putting common good ahead of whatever personal interest you might have. Absolutely. Dedication, diligence, resilience. Then you have Major General Paul Lokech, who has been Deputy IGP Chausa. The Lion of Mogadishu did not come out of nowhere. It's the image of the lion. I interacted with him a few times after the elections. He comes off as humane, unassuming. He's meticulous. He has been so meticulous. He's a great organizer. But he also makes you, Charles, feel at home. When you are with him, you wouldn't feel like you are with a soldier with a big rank. But yet, he's soft on wananchi, like myself and others, but he's also very hard on the enemy when he needs to be. If you look at the exploits in Congo, in South Sudan, in Somalia, and I think I found this gentleman also did some work in the Central African Republic.
Yes.
Him as well.
So
wasn't it him who, I think the car government was threatened with the coup or something, and he moved in and ensured that coup failed. He fought against the coup and succeeded in reinstating the government that was falling, you know?
Absolutely, Charles. And so in other words, what they have done is priceless, really. You cannot quantify, you cannot even attach a monetary value. These gentlemen are simply priceless. I found that I knew Major General Stephen Ravantu. I met him actually several times. He's a great storyteller.
Yes.
He used to tell me that in the bush he was called Gonya.
Yes.
Gonya.
That's right.
Yes.
The crocodile.
You know, I used to engage him. He told me that he was called the crocodile because he was one of the bravest.
Yes.
And so Charles, you have the lion of Mogadishu, which has gone to sleep, but the crocodile
has also gone to sleep.
Has also checked out Charles. So this is why you know.
One was called what? The nickname in the bush.
Who?
Pecos.
And those one who don't take cover.
Karampenge.
Karampenge.
Yeah, so Charles, we mourn these gallant sons of Uganda, but I think their legacy, like I've said, should be a challenge to us.
True.
All of us, the commitment, the selflessness, the patriotism, And, you know, even the humility.
True.
Charles, it disturbs me, even within the rank and file of government, we have some officials, including relatively junior ones. The people you hear asking someone in a taxi that, do you know who you are talking to?
Do you know me?
Do you know me?
You say, do you know me?
Yeah, so I think.
Do you know what I can do?
Yeah, do you know what I can change your life? So I think their lives should inspire us, should inspire generations now and even the future.
Yeah.
Now, like for General Kutesa, he has left a book which I suppose should be a point of reference, but also a source of learning and inspiration for many people now and for generations to come.
Which brings me, maybe as we wind up on this, unless someone has something to really add, we need to move to the next topic. But there is something from what we have discussed, the issue of legacy and of a soldier and how it can live on, and those exploits you talked about, exploits you even likened the one of General Okech to a German general. Is it possible that some of these examples, the stories in the battle, like the Americans like doing, the British like doing, that they are recorded for study purposes, for training purposes, as good points, and for the young people, Ugandans, who want to follow those pursuits of a career, to learn from, especially the good bits? Are they really recorded, or they go with the dead?
What the British and the Americans do, they have a diarist on every operation. We did not have a deliberate policy of having a diarist. However, we now have instituted that section of people who now have to record our history, first and foremost, but two, now those who will be recording the day-to-day activities when you are involved in operations. One, for study purposes, and two, for legacy. But Charles, I want to thank Commissioner for his, not only the kind words he has said, like many of you, but the question of what to learn, we who are surviving, issue of dedication, commitment, the attitude of expecting to gain from what you have done, or to change. I at times feel embarrassed when I hear people saying, I have supported this government, but I have gotten nothing. Well, Seguya is not living. Rubereza is not alive. They paid the ultimate price. What should they ask for? Serving a mother country, in my view, is the highest calling you can have. And when you have a chance of serving your motherland, what an opportunity.
Yeah. So
that's the legacy I would want all of us to emulate.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Perhaps let's let me just, Stephen, I want to bring you in, but I'm bringing you on. As a civil servant, I want to save you from commenting on some of these things. So I'm going to come back and we start with you on the second. Huh?
But he's a civil servant.
No, but this one speaks for government. He's an official spokesperson for government in his position, so he is mandated to speak. Let's take a break. When we come back, I will start with Stephen on our next topic, which is the suspension of the operations of a number of NGOs. Thank God we have Sarah here who works with many of them. And but as we wind up this topic, on behalf of On behalf of the Behind the Headlines, you know, our deepest, you know, sympathies to the different families of the fallen generals whom we have lost as a country, and may they rest in peace. And we pray, you know, with a lot of sympathy for the families to have comfort and courage as they endure these big losses. Let's go for a break right now. When we come back, we move to the next topic.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda, my home. Oh, my Uganda.
I know, with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home. On my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama.
My Uganda.
Oh,
my Uganda.
oh,
My Uganda. My Uganda. Nigokunda. My Uganda. Amari, Alemira. My Uganda.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
The Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is a unique process under the United Nations. It involves peer review of the human rights records of all UN member states every 4 years. The ultimate aim of the UPR is to help improve on the human rights situation in all countries through technical assistance and cooperation. Uganda will be reviewed in January 2022. This is an opportunity to raise international advocacy on Uganda's human rights situation. The National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda is coordinating all CSOs to participate in the CSO alternative reporting process in liaison with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For more information, email info@hrdcoalition.ug or call 0772 484 504.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with a backup battery and 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is a mechanism under the United Nations where member states review each other's human rights situation every 4 years. It's a voluntary process where all states are treated as equal partners.
The ultimate aim of the UPR is to improve on the human rights situation in all countries through technical assistance and cooperation.
The UPR is a state-driven process, and as such, the preparation of the report is done by an interministerial committee on human rights that is chaired by Foreign Affairs. We value stakeholder input in the process and therefore appreciate the role of civil society in the third cycle of the UPR process.
To this effect, the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, a civil society organization, is coordinating all civil society organizations to participate in this process of the alternative reporting in liaison with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Uganda.
The world record has been broken by almost exactly 2 seconds. He's Joshua Cheptegei of Uganda. This is superb running.
I've shared my story with the world, with you, but you've only seen the half of it. Because to truly know and appreciate my story, you will have to see it for yourself. My home, my Uganda. From the breathtaking waterfalls of the Nile to every beautiful sunrise and sunset, from the amazing blankets of green to the priceless treasures that lie within. Along the way, I have made some unusual friends, the world-famous silverbacks. When I see them, I behold Uganda's treasures. So yes, you see me and celebrate Uganda. I assure you, there is a lot more in store. I have lived here for years, but even I am yet to see its full glory. Join me. Let's take on the Pearl of Africa together.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on air. This is Behind the Headlines this Wednesday, the 25th of August 2021, and we have been eulogizing the fallen generals, especially General Pecos Kutesa, and who was buried last Sunday, and Major General Paul Lokech, who will be buried on Friday at his home in Pader. I got some 2 comments. One from Eric. He's sending a message. Eric is from Apache. He says, Charles, good evening. I just want to thank you for the show. May the souls of the generals rest in peace. How I wish that these generals were eulogized in Parliament and reviewed for what they did. Please, I would like to know whether that will happen. I'm told that will not happen, but for General Lokech, I'm told that he will be eulogized tomorrow at a council meeting which will bring together all the 8 district councils of Acholi and the city. But that council meeting will sit in Pader district headquarters. And then another message is coming from Julius, who is sending from Fort Portal. Julius says, Charles, you have made me recall what one of our U.S. commanders told us during our mission in Iraq. He said, guys, soldiers must focus on the mission, not the challenges in the desert. And indeed, good service members do that. Rest in peace, generals. And this is from, and then the last one, Samuel from Arua says that generals don't die, they only fade. That's a nice one. Thanks a lot. Let's now move to the next topic, and we are looking at the suspension of the NGOs and the implications of that suspension. And let's feel free to have an interactive discussion. But Stephen, Executive Director of the NGO Bureau, let me start with you, Stephen. You communicated this unfortunate decision. You took the decision to suspend these NGOs. Tell us very, very quickly, Stephen, must it have come to that, or to that stage of suspending these NGOs? Did you consider as a body, as a bureau that is, the fact that these NGOs, maybe they made mistakes, but tell us about them. But what is important is that they contribute to the economy, they hire, they employ a lot of Ugandans who pay taxes, different types of taxes, and all that kind of thing. And those are some of the sentiments that have been raised by people. So Stephen, you're most welcome. Feel free to tell us whether you had failed in discussing with these NGOs. And why only the 53? I'm told there are many others that, you know, have not got their papers right for one reason or the other that we shall be discussing. Stephen, you're most welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Charles. And I want to clearly state that you made it sound like it was a very unfortunate decision from the Bureau, but what I want to indicate is that the government really appreciates the contribution the NGOs make in this country. And I think for us to have a very clear and fruitful discussion, it's very important that I give you a very clear and very quick historical background of where government has come in terms of overseeing NGO operations. Before 1989, there was no clear law regulating NGOs in this country. We only had the Companies Act and the Trustees and Corporation Act, whereby you could appoint your trustees and have them operated under the Trustees and Corporation Act. However, in 1989, a clear law was put in place, and that was the NGO Registration Act, Chapter 113. It was able to open a register for all NGOs in this country and have them put on that register. That went on until 2006, when there was a need to amend this law. It was amended and a number of things were added, issues of incorporation of NGOs, issues of ensuring that NGOs would actually choose where they want to belong, and so many other issues. However, in 2007, government realized that they needed to have a clear policy, because having a regulatory framework without a policy still left a lot of gaps in the regulatory framework. And therefore, government developed a policy, and in October 2010, the cabinet approved the first national NGO policy. And when that policy came out, it exposed a lot of weaknesses in the act, and we had to actually review it. And in April 2011, government started the process of reviewing this particular act. And in 2016, this law was actually finalized. The president assented to it in January 2016, and it commenced on the 14th of March. And thereafter, regulations were developed for the NGOs, and in 2017, the regulations came out. Now, in terms of the regulatory framework for NGOs in this country, NGOs have a very comprehensive regulatory framework. They have the policy, the act, the regulations, they even have rules, they have guidelines, and they have everything that is needed. Now, the focus is ensuring that the NGOs are doing the right thing. And that is where the focus of the transparency and accountability in all this comes into play. Now, the NGO Act 2016 put in place the National Bureau for NGOs under the Minister of Internal Affairs with a very clear mandate to register, regulate, monitor, inspect, and oversee all NGO operations in this country. Now, as the NGO Bureau was carrying out its work, it realized that these 54 NGOs actually had issues which fell into 3 categories. There were 23 of them that had expired permits, and yet, according to actually Section 31, subsection 1 of the Act, requires that an NGO should not operate with an expired permit, and yet there were those who were actually out there operating. And also the same act gives permission to an NGO within 6 months before expiry of its permit, you are free to apply for renewal. And these NGOs are actually not applied for renewal, and yet their permits are expired. The other category was that 15 of these NGOs had not filed annual returns. And of course, there are implications of not filing annual returns. The moment you're not filing returns, you make it hard for even the Bureau to know what exactly you're doing. And in terms of accountability, NGOs mainly account to whoever gives them the funds, which they actually do very promptly. They also account internally to their boards and the teams that are there. Then they also account to the general public, and that is done through the NGO Bureau, because that's why actually the regulator is there to ensure they're accountable. So we realized that there were these actually 15 that had not been filing returns, and that left us not sure of actually what they've been doing. Then the third category were the 16 that actually had not been registering with actually the NGO Bureau because they were supposed to have registered. And then what happened was that we carried out investigations and found out that these organizations should have registered, and therefore we had to tell them really to hold the operation. So those are the 54, and those are the decisions we took because they were not compliant with the Act. But of course, we have seen a lot of versions out there of misrepresentation of what people are saying, but this is not a political issue. This is not a witch hunt. This is not being after anyone. That focus is very clear that this is a non-compliance issue. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Before I bring in the gentleman and lady who are here in the studio, and I'm sure Sarah is itching to respond to you, but
Stephen should have been in the studio.
Stephen, I just want to ask a follow-up question. You said that you investigated due process. Okay, a question of due process, but also fairness, as is provided for by our Constitution. Fairness and would demand, even if it is not expressly written in the law, that you inform the culprits that you are about to commit this crime or offense, and can you put your papers in order? Did you try to do that to give them a benefit of doubt?
Thank you, Charles. You see, the three categories, we carried out our investigations, and we actually exercised the due process that you're talking about. And also, if you look at the provisions of this particular act, Section 31(1) is very clear that if your permit is expired, you are not supposed to operate. And this is something that is clearly gazetted. It's a law of this country. And it is something that everyone is actually aware of. And even without the Bureau actually coming out to stop, any other stakeholder out there, whether it is the police, even if they came and found you have an expired permit, they actually have a right to stop you. And therefore, the Bureau really communicated this because this is an obligation that's on the organization, that you must ensure you are having documents that are valid. So in terms of the processes, yes, the processes were conducted. And how I wish would actually break it down into each case, because if there's anyone who is saying that they were not subjected to a due process, I can assure you a due process was conducted, and that was really done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in now the people in the studio, starting with Sarah. General said Sarah is on the edge of the chair, wishing. Sarah, you've heard what Stephen has said. I have spoken to a number of people and about this. He rightly provided the three categories that were suspended. And I want us to have an open discussion and interactive and see how some of these issues came to be. But starting with you, Sarah, in 2 minutes, what is your take about this action? That was it high-handed? Did the NGOs fall short? Why did Stephen's team use this? What some of them have said is a huge sledgehammer, on this matter instead of, using some soft power talk and all that.
Thank you, Charles. Allow me raise briefly, really 6 aspects concerning the actions of Mr. Stephen Okello, who is our friend really, as a sector and individual level. And so we just maybe disagree on methods of work, but he's closer to us and we interact and do many things as our regulator, and then as we try to build capacity for the sector. First of all, I want it to be on record that as civil society actors or NGOs, we do not condone the actions of non-compliance. So even the issues I'm going to raise are not in defense of non-compliance with the laws. So one of the issues I will raise is the mandate of the Bureau. The mandate of the Bureau is clearly captured in the object of the Act, to provide a conducive environment enabling for the sector to strengthen and promote NGOs in Uganda. That's the main object of the Act. Of course, it has other provisions: build a mutual partnership with the government, make provisions for the board of directors, which does not exist at the moment. So when you look at the actions of the Bureau, and it's not just this action, the Bureau, the first action, I think, after the enactment of the Act in 2016 was the raid on ActionAid, on Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Uhuru Institute, and others during the age-limited debate. I think that was the really first regulatory act under the Bureau. And organizations, I think this was closed for about 6 months then. So the way the Bureau comes in and interacts with the sector, is it enabling? Is it building a conducive environment? Is it promoting partnerships? What is this mandate that it exercises? And most likely at critical political times in the country. The second action, you can look at the closure of accounts towards elections over allegations of funding terrorism, where nobody was arrested, nobody was prosecuted, together with the Financial Intelligence Authority, then the suspension of NUU, and then we interacted, of course, the arrest of Nicholas Opian, Chapter 4, of allegations of money laundering, a case that has stalled for want of prosecution in courts of law. So this is the kind of regulatory environment we have as a sector. And my question is it enabling the sector or it is disabling? My second aspect is powers of the Bureau. Section 7 of the Act provides for powers of the Bureau, and it includes, among others, warning organizations, suspending permits, exposing the affected organizations to the public, revoking organizations' permit. So in these 4 powers of the Bureau, there is no power to halt. Halt means bring to an abrupt stop. There is no power to halt any actions of the organization. But among the 3 categories that Stephen has clearly mentioned, first category that had expired permits, Stephen has halted. And I have his document here. Third category of organizations he said are not registered, he has halted operations. Yet Section 7 does not mention powers to halt. So where does this power to halt come from that Stephen is exercising? My issue number 3 is on due process. Section 7.2 of the Act clearly states that organizations should be given an opportunity to be heard before any action is taken against them.
That
we
is
have
section what?
7 subsection 2 of the Act. We have had, of course, we have had a very busy weekend as a sector because of the announcement that Stephen made on Friday. There was selective interaction between the Bureau and the sector among the affected categories. Many organizations have said they never interfaced with the Bureau, they never heard from the Bureau. Even some of them up to today have not even received any communication from the Bureau, apart from seeing their names in the media. Further to that, Section 32 provides that an organization whose permit expires but continues to operate without a renewal of its permit will be fined 10 currency points in case of a community-based organization and 100 currency points for any other organization for every month of operation in default of renewal of a permit. Did Stephen read Section 32? Did he exercise it? And why is he suspending organizations whose permits have expired without giving them this option that the law provides for? And his action on organizations whose permits have expired is halting, abrupt end, abrupt stop of organization work, which the law does not provide for, which powers he does not have. When you go to Section 33 of the NGO Act 2016, it gives powers to the Bureau to revoke a permit of an organization if that organization does not operate within its constitution. So the revocation, which is among the functions of the Bureau, is meant for organizations that are operating outside their set objectives. But Stephen is revoking permits of organizations operating within their set mandate. So which law are we being governed under? Or which law does Stephen use? The same section provides that for any revocation to take place of a permit, there must be a 30 days written notice given to the affected organizations. Was this notice issued or not? When you go under the right of appeal provided for under Section 52 of the Act, Section 52 provides for establishment of an adjudication committee to handle appeals of persons aggrieved by the decisions of the Bureau. Ever since this act was enacted in 2016, this adjudication committee has never been established. So this means that affected organizations, aggrieved persons, have no right to challenge the decisions of the Bureau. And this is curtailed by the Line Ministry. And the NGOs are supposed to be represented on this adjudication committee. It has never existed. The issue I'm going to raise as I conclude, the last one, is on the absence of the Bureau. Under Section 6, Clause 4 of the Act, the work of the Executive Director of a Bureau is under the control and supervision of the Board of Directors. The last board expired on September 1st, 2020. Stephen, as he works today and as he's suspending NGOs, he has no supervisor. He has no board for 1 year. The Bureau is not fully constituted. On this board, there are supposed to be 2 representatives of NGOs. It does not exist. So who is supervising the work of Stephen? Who has endorsed the actions he has taken when he's not fully constituted?
Okay. Very interesting questions there. I want to bring in Chairman Mao and followed by Moses Watasa at this point. But let me give a very a short moment for Stephen to respond to some of these two, especially the three critical areas. One, the power of the board. Two, the issue of giving notice or written notice of 30 days. And when the law says written notice, it has got to be written notice. And then whether Stephen or the board, the bureau rather, whether you invoked section 32, talking about, 10 currency points, meaning, which is 200,000, right? 10 currency points. The currency point in our law is 20,000. So that is 200,000 every month for an offending NGO, that you did not invoke that. Instead, you went for the sledgehammer approach, that just close, revoke permit. Stephen, are you guilty as accused?
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm really grateful you have given me the opportunity to respond to something. You see, first of all, I think Sarah is not being honest here. She is speaking things and selectively interpreting it to suit it the way she wants it to come out. There are a number of things I want to respond to. The first one, of course, is that Sarah drags the bureau, into the raids on the offices of Action Aid, Uhuru Institute, and then the issue of closing accounts, freezing accounts, and then also the issues of arresting Nicholas Opio. I think the whole country knows that the bureau was never part of this, and therefore Sarah should be very honest when she puts out their facts there, because they end up misleading the general public for people to think that the bureau was actually part of this. We are never part of any raids. If we want to take an action against an organization, we engage them, we communicate to them, and have a clear way of doing it. Nicholas Opio knows whoever could have arrested him. He knows the bureau is not in the picture, and therefore Sarah should not do this. The only one where I agree with her is the issue of National Election Watch, NUU, which Sarah was a member. NUU started operating. It did not want to register. It did not want to have a permit. It did not want to incorporate. It just wanted to arrive onto the scene. It launched. It started operations. It was being hosted by NGO Forum. And we called them for a meeting and asked them, who are you? And we could almost get, are you incorporated? No. Are you registered? No. Do you have a permit to operate? No. You see, we are in a country of laws. And therefore, there's no way someone just wakes up and starts operating with no clear identity. And therefore, we halted the operations. Afterwards, Sarah ran to court with our organization and sued the bureau. And they lost the case because, thank God, the court really saw the merit of why we actually took our actions. But whatever Sarah is trying to put in relation to that actually is not correct, and I request he really puts correct information out there. On the issue of halting, I clearly mentioned section 1, subsection 1. It says that if you do have a valid permit, do not operate. Sarah wants us to really have the word halting always written in the act. That is the meaning of halting. Halting means that the day your permit expires, stop operating. And that is in section 31, subsection 1. Now, Sarah is saying it's provided, it's not even there. It is there, just open it and read it. Unless it's me who is not understanding it, but the bureau is an enforcer of that. So, Sarah, the whole reporting you're looking for is under Section 31, subsection 1. And those ones were actually told to halt their operations. Then also on the issue of the fines, I want to tell Charles that the amount we are talking about is not 200,000. It is 2 million shillings every month. That also is exercise, also being put there, and NGOs are actually paying it. And therefore, the Bureau has the discretion to actually either decide on whatever they can use to really find this. But when it came to this particular organization, engagements were had with them, and I want to really set the record straight. Sarah is dragging in the element of revocation. I don't think our statement even has the word revocation anywhere. Sarah, you should not mislead the country because you have a copy. Do we mention the word revocation anywhere? We did not revoke the permit of anyone. The only organization who had a notice to show cause why the permit should not be revoked was only Chapter 4. And even when we considered and we wrote to them, we said no. Even if we have given you a 30 days notice, which we actually wrote to them in December, and they even responded to it. And we said, okay, before we take a final decision, we feel we need to really go deeper and dig and investigate more things about your operations. And therefore, it was not even exercised. So there was nothing like revocation anywhere. And that's what really we need to really bring out clearly. In terms of the appeals, the right of appeal, now, ever since 14th March 2016, when this law commenced, it is very true that the Ministry of Internal Affairs has not yet put in place an adjudication committee. However, Sarah should not make it sound like that has totally frustrated the sector. It has not. Sarah herself, when knew their operations were halted and suspended and told not to carry it out, Sarah proceeded to the High Court. And I can tell you that any aggrieved NGO, as per now, in the absence of an adjudication committee, is free to proceed to the High Court and really raise whatever they raise, because we do not know when exactly this committee is going to be in place. I'm aware that it's being worked on. We are at the final stages. The minister will soon really finalize that. But Sarah herself has even exercised an option of going somewhere else. After all, even after the adjudication committee, if you're still aggrieved, you're still free to proceed to the High Court. And so the same Sarah is making it sound like there is a vacuum that has made their operations totally impossible. And that's not true. So she has already exercised her own right. She has never proceeded to court in the absence of an adjudication committee. So work can really move on even without the adjudication committee. Now, there's this element of the board. I have had Sarah on so many actual other talk shows trying to really say that the actions the Bureau took were totally wrong. It did not have the powers because there's a board. Now, I want really Sarah to appreciate the kind of boards we have. Now, from 1989 until the 14th of March 2016, when the new act, the 2016 act, came into force, we had an executive board. If you go and read the repealed NGO Registration Act, you'll clearly see this board had administrative functions. Okay. It was the one to register NGOs, it was the one to monitor NGOs, it was the one to have the register of NGOs. Everything that the technical team would do was handled by the board. However, from 14th March 2016, the board we have is a policy and oversight board, meaning theirs is about the strategic direction. Now, the work that is being done is technical work. We have 3 directorates there. We have the directors, we have the managers, we have the senior officials who have the work to do. The board oversees the operation in terms of the policy, the guidance, the oversight. And therefore, Sarah should not give the impression that without a board, the Bureau is totally dead. Actually, I heard on other shows saying we are a mere secretariat. That was the old law. And also Sarah should note that the law she's referring to was repealed it is no longer in force. And
okay, Stephen. Stephen,
is the law in force? Yeah.
Stephen, two things. I want to now bring in the gentleman in the studio. I want to start with Chairman Mao, but also I want to appeal to us not to refer to presentations made on other forums, because we don't know how it's not in my discipline, you know, as a moderator, to bring in issues which we cannot prove here. Maybe they were raised differently under different circumstances. But Chairman Mao, Sarah, I will bring you in later. I don't want to make it an exchange between the two of you. Chairman Mao, Okello protests the fact that Sarah is trying to refer to things that happened in the past, including the arrest of Councillor Nicholas Opio and the break-ins into the other NGO offices and all that. But when you read outside, just this discussion, that's what people are saying, that these have a link to maybe the politics. And Stephen, rightly so, gives three different categories of punished NGOs. And indeed, it seems they fell short somewhere. What do you make of this discussion?
Mr. Okello, the executive director of the National NGO Bureau, is going to continue biting his tongue for a long time. And by the time this debate is settled, he may have no tongue. Clearly.
that he will be tongueless.
First of all, let me put a disclaimer. Nicholas Opio and myself are from the same family. Let me put it on record. I believe we should declare, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a conflict of interest, because I'm also a lawyer. Number two, I was probably one of the toughest LC5 chairpersons as far as NGOs were concerned. My toughness was not based on these mundane compliance issues, but NGOs walking their talk. I became well known for throwing out an international NGO that had just won a Nobel Prize for Peace. And everybody wondered, who is this LC5 chairman who does not fear and just sends an international NGO packing and saying, you can go back.
Was that Medicine Sans Frontières?
Sans Frontières, yes.
Yeah.
And I had very, very, very clear reasons. Why do we call NGOs NGOs? Because they stand in the gap. The things that the government is not doing or cannot do or is not interested in doing, the NGOs do. Also, the NGOs are like a braking system on government excesses.
Oversight, sort of?
Yeah, they are intermediaries between citizens and the government. Let me make an observation about the kind of NGOs that have been in the media. Most of them are NGOs that are concerned with governance and human rights. Is it a coincidence? I think the government is very much comfortable with the NGOs that distribute seeds, the NGOs that bring second-hand clothes. They are not even checking that these NGOs are doing those kind of things. They are interested, they like NGOs that plant trees, NGOs that are offering counseling, and so on. But the moment you are an NGO and you say, lifting the age limit mutilates the Ugandan constitution. Then they want to look at your file to see whether your filed accounts and so on and things like that. Fortunately, that kind of approach in dealing with NGOs is not sustainable. It is actually a losing battle, because eventually you come face to face with citizens who don't have offices, and therefore my own advice is that we can talk about the legalese, but at the end of the day we must answer one important question. Does the government want citizens to organize and promote civic awareness, assert their civic rights? Because all these NGOs we are talking about are the type that are like fighting for free and fair elections. They are concerned with human rights. In other words, they say the things that make the government uncomfortable. Mr. Okello can say they are not linked, that the arrest of NGO leaders has nothing to do with them. I have to warn Mr. Okello not to allow the Bureau to be used as a mop. You know, the government can foul up and use you as a mop. So you now mop up. Just like we have been warning the courts of law. You arrest a citizen, beat them up, you bring them limping to court. So the court is now used as a mop. Of course, no judge has ever beaten up any suspect. And that is why I want to salute the judges who said, the moment you bring anybody after torturing them, we are going to throw out the case. So I would like to challenge Mr. Okello on the question of his independence and the independence of the Bureau. And it is okay to exercise executive powers as executive director. It is okay to say the board only sets policy. But what decisions do you execute? The decisions have to be made by the board, and I think it protects you also as executive director. Once you have been isolated as somebody who is mopping up after the hard men and women have fouled up, it is not a good experience.
Okay.
I want to end by stating clearly that these are things that can be discussed elsewhere. It is okay to go to court. I went to court also because for more than 5 years I was the butt of all jokes. How can an educated man fail to register to vote? I really suffered. A whole president of a party, you are not on the voters register. Even villagers registered. So basically, Mr. Okello, we are talking about abuse of power. In my case, it was the Electoral Commission abusing its power. Instead of compiling and updating the register, they retired the register.
Okay.
And I fought for 5 years to persuade the court. And I fought actually with the support of Chapter 4. So, if you only want NGOs that are dealing with these other issues of counseling and so on, right to play for children, they're all good. But we really need these NGOs, because these are the NGOs that are the best friends of the government, because the government gets challenged.
Okay.
I also know that there are many types of NGOs. We have the so-called There are also NGOs that are really not non-governmental. Even the government has NGOs. They are called GONGOs, government organized non-governmental organizations. No, Mr. Okello knows the GONGOs. Those ones are not touched.
What do they call them?
GONGOs.
Meaning?
Government organized non-governmental organizations. Then now the SARAs, theirs are the LONGOs, local non-governmental organizations.
I need to
then
bring
you
in
then you have FUNGOs, foreign funded non-governmental organizations. Then you have INGOs, individual non-governmental organizations. That is an individual who needs an income and therefore constitutes an NGO, but he's really effectively is an INGO. So
I need to bring in Moses Wetas.
Charles,
Chairman Mao, thank you. I will see which you will come towards the end.
Charles,
Moses.
There goes the Honorable Mao again with the with the hyperboles and.
But Moses,
yes.
Is government pushing people like Stephen Okello, from behind to take decisions that the persons like Sarah call acting, beyond the law, or is there some unsaid bad blood going on? Because even the 54 that we know of right now, I'm actually told that there are about 230 now. That's where the dilemma starts, because someone out there might be saying, "Kumbe," if for lack of a better word. So actually, there are some NGOs. There are many NGOs that are not actually following the law, because I'm told there are about 230 that that fall within these categories of, not registered, expired permits, but they have not been followed. It is only the 54, and there starts the dilemma. But why is government taking this kind of decision without following some of the provisions? Because the law acts in unison. It does not only look at one section, like Stephen is saying, that this one says, halt. It also has to take care of those others that Sarah has read, i.e., you can fine them as they continue violating, but you have to alert them, but also engage them.
Okay, Charles, first of all, this government recognizes NGOs. There are those that have done wonderful work, like in northern Uganda, I'm sure Honorable Mao, after the war, even during the war, resettling, psychosocial support, people traumatized by the war, even other parts of the country. And actually, Charles, this government also strives to create more space for civic awareness. I think just today, a Human Rights Commission has been constituted. I think they were vetted today. The chairperson and the commissioners. The purpose of that is to strengthen, even from the government side, the efforts towards greater civic awareness. But Charles, let me give you some figures which Stephen didn't give us. And this is why we need regulation of NGOs. Before revalidation in 2019, last year, we had these are figures from the Bureau.
Yeah.
We had over 14,000 NGOs, including the GONGOs that Honorable Mao and the INGOs that Honorable Mao is talking about. So we had
FUNGOs.
And FUNGOs, LONGOs. Charles, we had over 14,000 of these. You can imagine a country with over 14,000 of these. How do they account for the money from even their donors, the people who put in money? How do we ensure that they actually do what they purport to be going to do? But Charles, after revalidation, we now have 2,379 NGOs in Uganda. Sarah, these are figures from the Bureau. I got them today. Of these, it's 54 that have the issues we are talking about here. Now, these 54 are about 2.2% of the total number of functional NGOs in Uganda today. This shows you that the picture is not as grim or as scary as I've had in some circles. Because you have 54 out of 2,379, which means right now we have 2,325 NGOs who are compliant and are functioning normally. So, and that's why I'm happy that Sarah said they keep engaging with Stephen. I believe that NGOs as partners of the government, some of these issues can be resolved if the dialogue is on, the doors are open. And because really, like Honorable Mao said, we are partnering with them to make this country a better place, but that doesn't mean that they should also operate from outside the law. For example, an NGO must be registered. I've just said we had over 14,000. Most of these were not registered. An NGO should have a valid permit. An NGO should also file annual returns. I've looked at the act that Sarah is reading. They're actually required for registration, I think, Sarah, within 6 months of expiry of the permit. Within 6 months of expiry, the NGO should express interest for a renewal. Now, I think some of them have not done this. Then if you don't file your returns, how do we know where you get your money from, your funding from? Some of it could be proceeds of crime, maybe money laundering, the issues of terrorism, all sorts of, it could be proceeds of crime, and we don't want Uganda to be a theater for, these sort of experiments. So, and also if you don't file, how do we know what actually you are doing, whether it's within the law, or you're even using the donors' money properly? So I think we need to find a middle ground where Sarah and Stephen continue talking. I'm sure even Sarah, you don't want your NGO to be called a gongo, like Honorable Mama was saying. Especially a lingo. Yeah, a lingo and ingo. I want to be the one for Sarah is an NGO. So you can see, Sarah, that the regulation is in the interest of the NGOs. It's also in the interest of the government, but also our society at large. Okay. I'm sure Honorable Mao gave us an example of the one he kicked out of Guru. This was an NGO, and moreover, an international one, I think, Honorable Mao. Yes. So if you can have an international NGO turning into a gongo and an ingo, to the extent that Honorable Mao throws them out of Guru, and by extension from Uganda. So I think we agree that we need to regulate. And Sarah read for us the possible actions. There's a warning, there's I think exposure, there's a fine. Then there are the more drastic measures like revoking, which hopefully can be avoidable if the compliance also from the NGOs improves. I know we are now running short of time, but we need to wind up properly. General, when you look at some of this as a person who was making the law, but also you are dealing with a dicey, or can I call it that complex relationship between the state and non-government actors, but that they have to complement each other. But then here we are
now talking about some being closed, some not working well with the people who are supposed to supervise them. How do you think this should be handled in your view?
First of all, I think you're asking both right and wrong person. Let me start with a disclaimer of how I'm a wrong person. I'm a student of the late Dr. Tajuddin on that subject.
Yeah.
He observed that NGOs were a new form of colonialism.
Those are the fungos.
Especially the fungos.
The foreign funding.
And indeed, when you read the book entitled The World Banker, almost writing about the works of James Wolferson,
the former World Bank president.
Banker to the world.
Yes, so the book is called The World Banker. The author brings out the genesis of NGOs. And you find that the genesis is indeed what Tajuddin had observed. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West wanted the government to disengage from the third world. And so promoted the non-government organization as an avenue for them to continue influencing policy and government decisions in the third world.
The new missionaries.
So they became the new missionaries
collars.
without collars. And therefore, indeed they championed these policies of the Western governments with a zeal. After all, they were fungos, and the Africans tended to respect anything foreign.
And white.
Two, there was an avalanche of government changes and revolutions in Africa. All right?
Yeah.
And therefore, there was a need to check these revolutions, which after all came in the dying years of the communist bloc.
The Cold War.
Or the Cold War. And I can tell you for just one example. Rubiri Barracks, which is the palace today in Mengo, by 1988 had 50 churches around it. And the intention was to check this new communist regime in Uganda. So Tajuddin was not far from the truth. I remember one particular one which we attended, three of us, and one of us was very radical in his questions. He was thrown out of the room through the window. That's how democratic the NGOs could be. Now, three, my own experience when I was a commanding officer in the north. If you met somebody with round cheeks, shining forehead, or round sitting facilities,
what is that?
This would be from an NGO. He's here, he's my witness.
And with
the most powerful vehicles that were being driven, with areas that are longer than this building, were NGOs. That's the background some of us come from. And that's the aspect I said you asked the wrong person. However,
but all the answers were the right ones.
Yes.
So you first go to the right ones, I see.
But two,
this is a witness for Mr. Okello.
But I thought they were in Parliament when the NGO Act was.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Three, NGOs are a necessity to fill the gap.
Yeah.
And the two, some of the NGOs Mao is referring to were ingenuity of fresh graduates from universities who had not gotten employment, came together, one or two people, and formed NGOs. All right? To find what to do, but eventually they have employed other Ugandans. Kudos.
Yeah.
Four, some of these NGOs and the INGOs, I go for and Longos, as you said, have actually turned themselves to be representatives of the people. All right?
Yeah.
Some of the questions they raise are legitimate.
Yeah.
But on many occasions, they actually undermine government work in the local communities. And they tell you we are speaking for the people. So I've had occasion to interact with some of them because they are my friends, and they said, who gave you the mandate?
Elongo speaks for the people.
Wait a minute. The people are represented by chairperson LSU5, by members of parliament, people who have been voted to represent them.
But the Longos should speak for the people.
Now,
because Mao said they are locally organized NGOs.
The Longos should speak for the people if they are fulfilling their mandate, their professed mandate. Because there are many occasions that actually they don't. And therefore that brings in Mr. Okello on my point number 5. The question of righteousness. You know, they pose as very righteous in the way they do their things. And when you question them, they seem to be saying, wait a minute, who are you to question us?
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? But honestly,
do you know what I do?
But they call the sponsor.
Thank you very much.
Then you see an article in New York Times.
Because I can tell you, for example.
Do you know what I do?
Yes, I can tell you, for example. The closure of courses in Chankwanzi in 1996 came from donors, but the main noise makers were 2 categories, the NGOs and the Democratic Party.
Because it was indoctrination.
Now, they called it indoctrination.
Yes.
But we have never changed the syllabus. And the commissioner has been of recent there, I told him.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
I have had a chance to meet people who were originally very critical, but who have gone there and come back with a different opinion.
Absolutely.
They were vaccinated.
No, they were exposed to the truth.
Absolutely.
So as I'm winding up, Charles.
Yes.
Everybody should be subject to the provisions of the law.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 1. Number 2, and this brings me to a common characteristic that has emerged in this country. We praise wrong things. If government has moved on a certain individual or certain groups, we do not bother to investigate the legitimacy of what government has done. We look at government as a victimizer. But as a former legislator now, I come to what you are saying. Of course, the purpose of repealing the law and introducing a new one was, first of all, coming up to date, government coming up to date with the current dynamics. 2, indeed an avalanche of NGOs, as you mentioned. By the way, I can tell you, Commissioner, that at some point, Padre district alone had 3,800 NGOs, one district. But so you examine the impact of the NGOs on the ground, it's in there.
The entire district was NGO.
The entire district was NGO, but you don't see the communities changing in ways of lives.
We used to do it by counting signposts.
Thank you very much.
We had more signposts per capita.
Per capita. Another witness for Mr. Okello.
But for a different reason. I am only saying that Mr. Okello's action is unwarranted because it is targeting a particular tribe of NGOs that are involved in governance.
Now,
but if each of those NGO owners, especially the Longos, locally organized NGOs, if each of them was, if each of those persons behind them was making a living out of it through a trickle-down effect, how come there was no improvement?
Yes, this is what I'm talking about. And as a government, you get concerned. But finally, the question of accountability, okay?
Yeah.
Leave alone following what the laws require. Because there are some individuals who have become Mungo Parks in NGOs. Today he's with this NGO, the other day he's with the other one, next he's forming his own. Follow their movement. Where are they migrating? There are issues of integrity. But they speak, they make the loudest noise in demanding integrity from government.
No, they also demand change and say politicians have been around too long.
Too long.
The executive director for life.
The executive, you know, like I'm told of a building which was supposed to be for all NGOs, but one particular NGO owns it, funded by some country. I'm told. Since I don't have documented evidence, I cannot mention the details.
Yeah, no, in Kampala, rumor mongering is a major activity.
And
we even do it in State House.
Do we take judicial notice of rumor mongering in Kampala?
Exactly. Binaisa said that Kampala is a city of seven hills and 7 rumors a day.
Okay, I know that we have run out of time. I'm going to just request the producer to give me a few minutes so that I wind up. Stephen
so that Sarah can file an affidavit in reply.
The fairness, the rule of fairness demands that Sarah responds to some of the replies.
And
to some
Mr. Okello, of course, will never get a fair trial in
the court of NGOs. But at least
it's like being tried by when you are negotiating over a forest and the monkey is the judge.
So I wanted to end with this statement.
Yeah.
There is an
no, can you can hold it if you don't mind.
Okay.
I'm going to give each of you 1 minute to wind up. Maybe Sarah will give her 1.5. Yes. Stephen also 1.5. But my producer has been on putting pressure on me and saying that they are very interesting discussion online, and he wants me to read some 3 or 4. So let me bring in Ivan Mugabe, who says, let the souls of the 2 generals be granted the peaceful rest. May their works be remembered. RIP generals. Okay, that's Ivan Mugabe. Lotu Loteba, such an interesting name. Sounds like Lingala. From Kotido, this one says, government should name a college in Uganda in memory of General Paul Okech. Better still, a road in Kampala named after the 2 fallen generals. Okay, Banga Doni says, Charles, thank you for the good work you are doing. It's good to remember good people to have contributed to the development of this country at large. Thanks goes to Commander Felix. Mao, Sarah, I love your character. Sarah, there you are. Thank you. Sergeant Bernard. No, after the Mao, they put a comma. To just exclude you from the Sarah. Sergeant Bernard says, good evening behind the headline. General Okech has really served this country and East Africa as a whole. We hope that those who have remained learn something from the fallen general. Thank you. Bwayo from Bwayo R. Magufuli from Mbale says, General Paul Okech will be remembered when he acted so much in the case of General Katumba during his attack in the previous killings. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you. James from Manafwa, James Musungu, says most of the affected NGOs are for human rights. They objectively try to expose human rights abuses that forced President Museveni to dramatically speak out. Government should avoid arbitrary and unlawful regulation of the NGOs. Charles, when did the minister become a judge? Okay. Al-Sadat from Masindi Port, say, Kiriandongo district says, allow Chairman Mao to comment about Odonga Oto's write-up on Major General Paul Okech. Okay, Chairman Mao, if you will, if you feel free to if you feel so, feel free to go for that. I
will only talk after the general has been laid to rest.
Okay. Hello, I am Isaac Israel, watching from Soroti. My question to Stephen, how did all this start and how did it grow to this level? Where was the Bureau Is that the spelling of bureau? That must have been written in my language. Where was the bureau before and why acting now? Brian from Gulu says, hello Charles, thanks for the show. It's actually my first time watching UBC Behind the Headlines. I didn't know I was missing a lot. Oh, Brian, welcome aboard. But I'm confused between Sarah and Stephen. Who is telling the truth and who is lying between Sarah and Stephen? Matua George Richard, Nansana Municipality. Matua, I will need to find out if you are in Nansana or in Maracha, but that is after the show. Charles, thank you so much for the show. Ask Council Sarah Birete why they confuse people by claiming that NGOs are CSOs. I am Sabuni Moses. Thank you, Charles. I am a huge fan of Behind the Headlines. First, I'm so sad for the loss of great men in uniform, General Kutesa and Major General Okech. May their souls rest in peace. Salute to Brigadier General Felix Kulaije, feeling sorry with Commander-in-Chief General Museveni, the President. Those are some of the messages that we got, but there is another interesting one here that someone sent and says, Mawa, this is someone called Mawa Alfred from Moyo, and he says, my regards to Afande Kulaije, who was my classmate in Kololo High in 1983. He's a typical army officer.
A soldier through and through.
A soldier.
And then from Honorable Margaret Muhanga, she says, this is now a minister. We started this show together with her. She says, you have really made my evening today. Especially, I'm enjoying Mao's humor, satire, and metaphors. He is such an orator and has described the two fallen soldiers very well. Yeah. Now, Brigadier General Kulaije is equally smart and giving us the military perspective of these two soldiers. Nice show, and I miss this show. And then there was another one which I have missed here. There is a senior army officer, I think, who signed off, and he just picked a quote and said, Major General Okech, Paul Okech is another fruit fallen unripe. My condolences to his family, the armed forces, and all Ugandans. Okech embodied sterling qualities of a man and a soldier. He survived LRA and Al-Shabaab only to succumb to a blood clot. Blood clot. Who born you? Honorable Norbert Mao. Then the person says, nothing less, nothing more. Rest in peace, the Lion of Mogadishu. I think those are the ones we can go with. For now, someone says, my credit to Moses. His explanation is very articulate. There you are, Moses Watasa.
I want him to know that Moses went to Namiliango College.
And that there are two Ngonians in this studio tonight.
Well.
Okay, Kololo High.
So, I think we need to, I'm Michael from Kaveramaido. I have liked Mao's words, and thank you for the show, Charles. Memories of Lokech are always in my head. Looking at all videos of him on YouTube, I love the show. My brother, I can't miss it. This is someone called Justus Muhanji from Sierra Leone. Thank you so much, Justus, and thanks to the rest. We need now to wind up. Let me now ask Sarah. Stephen had raised some issues. We need to wind up, so it is going to be very fast. Respond to some.
repealed law.
I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief,
Yes,
Charles.
and also
I will start on Stephen's allegation on saying I'm quoting a repealed law. Stephen, I am quoting section 6, subsection 4, on how you are established in the act. And I wish you could be sincere, because we are not talking politics on this show. Section 6, subsection 4, provides that the ED shall be under control and supervision of the board of directors. And section 9 of the same act stipulates the composition of the board, which should have 2 representatives from the NGO. In your concluding remarks, can you tell the listeners whether this is the law that gives you powers or not? Because you alleged, me and you are lawyers, you alleged that I'm quoting a repealed law. All Ugandans can download this law and read it. So can you be sincere on that point?
Oh, apologize quickly.
You all apologize for that allegation. The board does not exist for 1 year now. Who is supervising you? Can you tell Ugandans? Secondly, I did mention I did mention what has happened to the sector from the time the act was enacted. I did not say that all actions are attributed to the Bureau, but the Bureau is the supervisor of the sector. Some of the actions are by Financial Intelligence Authority, but they use documentation from the Bureau. So I did not say all these crimes have been committed by the Bureau. There are more worse things that have happened, but I was giving a background of what has happened to the sector since the enactment of the act that was meant to improve, to create a conducive environment for the sector, and the reverse is happening.
Way forward?
Yes, I'm coming. Just 1 minute. Charles, there is a contention on Bureau's actions on organizations that are registered and are reporting to the URSB that are not registered with the Bureau.
Yeah.
Yes, so I thought I should speak about that briefly.
Yeah.
When you go under the interpretation section of the Act, the NGO Act 2016 describes an NGO, an NGO as an organization legally constituted under the Act, Act 2016, meaning that Act. It is under the interpretation of the law. But there is some vagueness created by Section 3 of the NGO Regulations 2017, where people tried to smuggle in clauses of organizations not registered with the Bureau. Yet the Bureau is clear. It refers to organizations registered under the Act. There is contention on this issue, and we are going to seek interpretation. We are going to first dialogue with Stephen, but we intend to seek interpretation of what is an NGO and what this act is intended to regulate.
Okay.
On the way forward, I did mention, Charles, at the beginning of my remarks, that we do not condone any behaviors of non-compliance with the laws, and I was very clear. Moses did talk about it. Nobody is contesting regulation of the sector. What we are saying is, how about these provisions that are not being followed? Why can't we operationalize the NGO Bureau fully? Have the Secretariat, which is headed by Stephen, have the board, supervise the work of Stephen, have the adjudication committee to mediate between the sector and the Bureau. Why is it non-functional? Why is it halfway constituted?
Thank you very much. Stephen, I need you to give us a way forward. And in that way forward, you can respond to some of the issues that were raised by the counter responses by Council Sarah here. And and then give us a way forward. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles. I think you shouldn't have given Sarah the opportunity to talk because it reopens the whole meeting, and yet you're saying we are almost out of time. I just wanted to really request Sarah to go and read Section 11 of the NGO Act. Section 11 spells out all the functions of the board, and they're right there. I'm not saying that as the ED, you do not report to the board. Every quarter, you report to the board, and annually you give full reports, everything, and the board will always guide. But the impression you are trying to create is that the Bureau cannot do anything if the board is not there. And I'm trying to correct that misconception that is being brought out, that the ED will always report to the board, will always tell the board, we got this number of organizations that registered, the board will always guide on actions that are being taken, and so many things. Now, the other thing, you also brought out the element of the organizations under URSB. Now, the NGO Act requires that NGOs in this country must have 3 documents. You need a certificate of incorporation, you need a certificate of registration, and you need a valid NGO permit. Now, all those depend on the different types of NGOs that are in this country. We have indigenous NGOs, we have regional, continental, foreign, and international. Now, there are those that come into the country already incorporated. That means that those ones only apply for certificate of registration and the valid permit at the end of the day. However, this element of trying to say that organizations coming from the URSB should not be dragged into this, I also think is not something that you would love to mislead the NGOs on, because every NGO must be incorporated, and it was only in 2006 when that element of NGOs can elect where they want to belong was brought into the law. But that 2016 Act repealed all that. That means that every organization that qualifies to be an NGO must be at the NGO Bureau, and that includes the ones that are being incorporated as company limited by guarantee. And that means that they cannot go and hide under URSP, and they must end up coming to the NGO Bureau.
Okay.
So I think as a way forward and concluding, we have been very clear that the NGO Bureau is open in a discussion, in a dialogue. Whoever has a case and wants to raise it and say, okay, we think you did not get us clearly here, we are there. We are not pushing away anyone. We have already received a number of letters from those who want to meet us for a discussion. We are going to schedule meetings and have discussions with them. So it's not like we are shutting out anyone. We're interested in having these issues resolved and closed. So I think on my side overall is that the Bureau is doing its work. It's not after any NGO. There's nothing political. All these are technical issues and issues of compliance. All we want is that NGOs in this country are transparent and accountable in their operations. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I like the end. It's and they say all is well that ends well. Most important is that the doors are not closed to discussions. That you and Sarah also has said the same. That's you have spoken like a typical, like they say, General Kulaije is a typical soldier. For you, you have spoken like a typical Alur. You always negotiate. Always negotiating, but always smiling as well. Very important.
The Chinese. Their rules are like the Chinese.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We are now closing. Chairman Mao, way forward on today's discussion. If you want to end with on the eulogy, or you want to end with the discussion on the NGO issue.
On the eulogy, I just want to say that we need military historians to keep a record of what the military does for purposes of equipping the next generation. On the NGOs, Definitely, Sarah's crusade is bearing fruit because I can hear some concessions now.
By the way, what came out lately, I think today, is that the minister met some of the NGO representatives, the Minister of Internal Affairs, as part of, I think, what Stephen is saying, that and that there is actually a discussion even at a higher level to ensure that, because I think there were some misunderstandings, especially in the different categories and even some of the legal aspects. So, yeah.
I want to volunteer to be a mediator. As you know, yes, as you know, I'm completely independent because I bash NGOs when they foul up, and I also take no prisoners regarding the Bureau. Thank you, Charles.
As far as NGOs and punishing them is concerned, we know you have the evidence. You punish them not only by revoking their license in Northern Uganda,
but I also kicked out some businesses from Gulu that were violating environmental laws.
Thank you so much.
Without talking to the press.
Yes.
I think the problem with our leaders, they dramatize too much.
Yeah.
If I want to kick you out, I kick you out and go to office and continue with my work. I don't have to call a press conference.
General Kulaije.
Well, thank you, Charles, and I salute the colleagues on the panel for the kind words about the two generals and the military in general. My last word is that we should not only talk about what the generals did and stood for, but emulate them. This is the only country we have, some of us. We should give it the best. What you do outlives you more than what you acquire. And life is only meaningful if you have made other people's lives better than you found them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Moses.
Charles, thanks a lot. About the generals, Charles, who we've lost, I think one way of honoring them would be to, I think like Honorable Mao alluded, to set up probably a memorial repository or maybe a museum which has, in a broad sense, our history, but also documenting the immense contributions of some of these great sons of Uganda. I've had actually, I found even General Muhoozi Kainerugaba proposing that it would be a good thing. So it helps us also learn from our history so that we avoid certain mistakes which contributed to a dark era in our history as a country, but also to keep in memory these great people who have contributed immensely into building Uganda. About the NGOs, the Gongos and Ingos, it's good to engage. It's good to engage, Charles. And
some of these things we should
and I'm happy to
we should also archive them from an NGO to a Longo to an Ingo.
Yeah, and Charles, I'm happy to note that between Sarah and Stephen, the doors are not closed yet.
Yeah.
So because we want to build a vibrant but accountable NGO sector in this country.
Yeah.
I found they talked about this. Some of the biggest cars, by the way, in this town are driven by people from NGOs.
Civil society organizations.
They like holding government to account, but I think they should similarly also be accountable.
Yeah.
And where they can't agree, Charles, we have a court system in this country. Yeah, so even the board, I think the bureau can be challenged.
Yeah.
So not all is lost, but bottom line, we need a vibrant but accountable NGO sector in this country for the good of the country.
We need an accountable society, government that is accountable,
absolutely,
NGOs that are accountable, powerful individuals that are accountable, and I think that's what we must always emphasize. Thank you very much, Moses, for coming to the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Councillor Sarah, for always holding your own and for the good debate. Thank you very much, General Kulaije for finding time to come here and help us, condole with the bereaved families. And thank you very much, Chairman Mao, for putting up a good presentation in honor of the fallen soldiers, but also in respect of the work on the NGOs. And Stephen, all the way from Nebi, I know that you traveled for the memorial, I think the memorial activity of your dad, Pole Sana. And but I really appreciate that you could spare time and this evening, instead of being with the people at home, to participate in this discussion. That was honorable of you, and I respect you for that, and we really appreciate as UBC. From the entire team here, we want to thank you all, especially those of you who sit in your sitting rooms this late hour on Wednesday, to listen to the show and to be part of it.
Thank you for the cup of coffee.
Yeah?
Thank you for the cup of coffee.
Oh, the cup of coffee. Was it?
Cups?
Was it?
As a souvenir.
As a souvenir. I think we will discuss that.
Thank you.
By the way, for me, I decided my cup is a special one today because today we were helping the Ministry of Health launch.
And you took the cup?
Yes, they gave me. This is called Heroes in Health Awards. For the next which reminds me, for the next 2-3 months, the public out there, look out for adverts about the heroes in health, especially the timeliness of people who are contributing towards saving our lives with this COVID mess. But also people out there who do great and excellent work as far as health is concerned. Doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers, drugs, transporters, drivers, and all those. So look out for the best in your area and nominate them through the different Ministry of Health platforms, and so that they will be awarded towards the end of the year for their excellence. But as far as COVID is concerned, please keep the SOPs and the general standard operating procedures. COVID is still here with us. Don't take it for granted. Wash your hands with soap as regularly as you can. Ensure that you sanitize. Keep social distance as you go about your other activities, especially when you mix up with other people who, you can never take it for granted. But so let's keep ourselves safe. That's the most important message. And let's keep alive. Thank you very much. And goodbye. God bless you all.
Be alert. Do not share your Airtel Money PIN number with anyone. Airtel Uganda employees will never ask for your Airtel Money PIN number on call, SMS, or by email. All SIM card registrations, SIM card verifications, or SIM swaps are done at clearly branded Airtel shops and not on phone. To report any fraudulent activity, please call 100 immediately. The official calling number for Airtel promotions is 0200 100 100. Stay alert on Airtel Money.